I'm speaking to you now from a quiet room, thousands of miles from the glamour of a film set, but what I have to share with you feels more real and more urgent than any scene I have ever performed. It began 3 weeks ago in Dallas. We were attending a fundraising gala for a wonderful charity, an event filled with beautiful people in expensive clothes, celebrating the success of the chosen and raising money for a noble cause. The ballroom was breathtaking, shimmering with crystal chandeliers and the gentle clinking of champagne glasses. There was a sense of victory in the air, a feeling of being blessed, of being on the right side of God's favor. But as my car pulled away from the venue after midnight, we were stopped at a traffic light. And there, under the cold, sterile glow of a streetlight, I saw him. An old man, his face a roadmap of hardship, huddled in the doorway of a closed shop. He was trying to shield himself from a biting wind with nothing but a tattered cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps. God bless." His hands were shaking, and his eyes held a hollowness that seemed to swallow the light around him. We were separated by less than 50 feet of pavement, but it felt like we were living in two different universes. In my world, we had just spent thousands of dollars on a single night of celebration. In his, a single dollar might mean the difference between eating and starving. In that moment, a profound and sickening spiritual dissonance washed over me. It was a feeling beyond simple guilt. It was a crisis of reality. How could both of these worlds be real? How could I, a man who has been given the incomprehensible honor of portraying the Son of God, a man who lived with the poor, who championed the outcast, be living in such opulent comfort while a child of God shivered on the pavement just outside? The tuxedo I was wearing suddenly felt like a costume of hypocrisy. The success I had been celebrating felt tainted, heavy. A question began to form in the depths of my soul, a question that wasn't just academic, but terrifyingly personal. It was a question that would follow me, haunt my sleep, and ultimately drive me to my knees. For the next week, that question was a constant, unwelcome guest in my mind. I went through the motions of my life, but my spirit was in turmoil. Every comfort I enjoyed, a warm bed, a full meal, a safe home, felt like an accusation. I tried to reason with myself. I tithe. I give to charity. Our work on the show is bringing people to God. But these justifications felt like thin paper shields against the storm raging inside me. The truth was, I was deeply, spiritually confused. The world preaches that success is a sign of God's blessing, that prosperity is a reward for faith. But the words of Jesus that I have spoken so many times on screen echoed in my memory, "Woe to you who are rich, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle." The breaking point came one night in my hotel room. It was nearly 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. The image of the old man's face was burned into my mind. I finally slid out of bed, fell to my knees on the cold floor, and I didn't pray a polite, structured prayer. I wept. I cried out to God with a rawness and desperation I hadn't felt in years. "Jesus," I whispered into the darkness, my voice choked with emotion. "I don't understand. I am playing you. I am speaking your words. But I am living a life so far removed from the one you lived. Is this success a blessing you have given me to steward, or is it a golden chain, a beautiful, heavy curse that is slowly pulling my soul away from you. I need to know the real truth. I can't live like this, torn between these two worlds. What is the truth about money and the soul? I stayed there for what felt like an hour, expecting nothing but the continued silence of my own troubled heart. But then, a stillness entered the room. It wasn't a sound or a light, but a presence so profound and so familiar it made every hair on my arms stand up. It was a presence of absolute peace, mixed with a somber, loving gravity. And I knew I was not alone. He was there to answer the question that had finally broken me open. He didn't speak at first. Instead, the walls of my hotel room seemed to dissolve, and I was standing somewhere else entirely. I was an invisible observer in the most magnificent home I had ever seen. It was a palace of glass and marble, filled with priceless art and technology that seemed to be from the future. A man, dressed in silk, walked through the vast, empty rooms. He had everything the world could offer: wealth, power, influence. And he was in absolute agony. There was no joy in this house. No laughter. No love. Only the suffocating silence of immense, lonely wealth. Jesus stood beside me, his presence a silent commentary. He allowed me to see beyond the physical and into the spiritual reality of the scene. He showed me the man's heart. This man tithed, Jonathan. Jesus' voice echoed in my mind, not my ears. He gave to public charities. He attended church. He believed his fortune was the righteous reward for his hard work and his faith. And then, Jesus showed me the shocking truth. I saw the man's soul, and it was trapped. It was enclosed in a beautiful, shimmering cage made of pure gold. And as I looked closer, I saw that each golden bar of the cage was forged from a specific moment in his life. One bar was a desperate plea from a struggling family member that he had ignored. Another was the millions he had spent on a piece of art instead of funding a well that could have saved a village. Another bar was the time he chose to hoard his profits during a crisis instead of paying his employees a living wage. It wasn't the sins of commission that had damned him, it was the catastrophic, soul-crushing weight of his omissions. He hadn't been evil. He had simply been comfortable. His wealth hadn't led him to sin, it had anesthetized him to the coal of love. The vision of the golden cage faded, leaving me shaken to my core. I looked at Jesus, my mind reeling. I had always thought of blessings and curses as external things, as rewards or punishments sent from God. But this was something else entirely. Lord, I don't understand, I stammered. He wasn't a bad man. Jesus looked at me, his eyes filled not with judgment, but with a profound sadness. And then he spoke the first truth that shattered my understanding. Wealth is never the reward, Jonathan, he said, his voice both gentle and as firm as creation itself. It is the magnifying glass. It is the most powerful and dangerous tool I allow on earth, for it does only one thing: it makes the human heart more of what it already is. He continued, if a heart is filled with generosity, compassion, and a love for my kingdom, wealth will magnify that generosity 1,000 times over, and that soul will become a mighty river of blessings to the world. But if a heart is secretly filled with fear, with pride, with insecurity, or with a love for the comforts of the world, then wealth will magnify those poisons until they calcify into a cage exactly like the one you saw. The man was not punished with wealth. He was revealed by it. This was the first shock, the one aimed at every believer who has ever equated their comfortable life with God's approval. The truth is the opposite. A large bank account isn't a sign of God's favor. It's a sign that you have been placed in the advanced class, that you are undergoing the highest level of spiritual scrutiny, and that the test is graded on a devastatingly steep curve. Your life is not a reward, it is a final exam. Just as my mind began to settle into this new, terrifying paradigm, that wealth is a danger and poverty must therefore be the safer path, Jesus stopped me. Do not make the opposite mistake, he warned. And instantly, a new vision unfolded before me. This time, the scene was one of abject poverty. I saw a man living in a cramped, dilapidated apartment. His clothes were worn, his cupboards were bare. He was a man who had nothing. And as I watched him, a wave of compassion washed over me. Surely this man, the one Jesus called blessed in the Beatitudes, was safe from the dangers of materialism. But then, just as before, Jesus allowed me to see his heart. And what I saw was just as horrifying as the golden cage. The man's soul was not free. It was shackled to a dark, hideous idol. The idol was not made of gold, but of pure, black resentment. His inner world was a toxic storm of envy for his neighbor's new car, bitterness toward his boss for a missed promotion, and a deep, seething hatred for anyone who had the things he believed he deserved. He prayed, but his prayers were not for grace or for strength. They were demands for material possessions, bargains offered to God in exchange for earthly comforts. Jesus turned to me and explained the second shocking truth. This man possessed no money, he said, but the love of money owned his soul completely. He did not covet my kingdom of righteousness and love. He coveted his neighbor's earthly kingdom of comfort and status. He was a pauper in the world, but he was a worshipper at the altar of mammon in his heart. And in that moment, I understood. The shock for the poor, for everyone who has ever believed their lack of resources made them morally superior, was this: you do not need to possess a single dollar for the insidious poison of materialism to consume you and cost you your eternal soul. The vision of the man trapped by his own bitterness faded, leaving me speechless. I had fallen into the oldest trap of human judgment, assuming that the state of a person's wallet was the state of their soul. Jesus looked at me, seeing the flawed logic collapsing in my mind. He then spoke the second truth, a truth that dismantles the pride of the poor just as the first dismantled the security of the rich. The absence of wealth does not mean the presence of God, he said, his words cutting through centuries of religious self-righteousness. Poverty, like wealth, is a test. For some, it is a fire that forges profound humility and a desperate, beautiful dependence on me. But for others, it is a fire that forges only bitterness, blame, and a sense of victimhood that becomes an idol in itself. Many who had nothing on earth will arrive in heaven with nothing, because they never cultivated the only true treasure, a heart filled with love and forgiveness instead of envy and resentment. But Lord, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, what about your own words? You said it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. I always thought that meant it was nearly impossible. A sad smile touched Jesus' lips. Humanity has always focused on the difficulty of that image, instead of the simple, practical instruction it contains. It is not a statement of impossibility, it is a lesson in unburdening. A camel cannot pass through a city's small pedestrian gate that a needle's high, while it is still loaded with all its worldly baggage. It must first be unburdened. The baggage must be taken off its back. The soul is the same. A soul cannot enter the narrow gate to my kingdom while it is still loaded down with the baggage of this world. For the rich man, that baggage is the attachment to keeping his wealth. For the poor man, that baggage is the attachment to desiring it. The spiritual requirement is identical for both. You must be willing to lay all of it down at the gate. You must arrive with empty hands, carrying only the love you have given, ready to receive everything I have for you. As I struggled to grasp this, Jesus said, "Let me show you the only economy that matters. Let me show you what it looks like to be truly unburdened." The scene shifted again, and this time it was a vision of breathtaking beauty. I saw the realm beyond death, a place of pure light and love. I saw countless souls, and their brilliance, their radiance, was not uniform. Some shone with the light of 1,000 suns, while others had a gentler, softer glow. I asked Jesus what determined their light. He showed me. The vision rewound, and I saw one of the most brilliant souls back on earth. He had been a man of modest means, a simple factory worker. But I saw him give half of his lunch to a coworker who had none. I saw him anonymously paying a single mother's electric bill with money he had saved for months. I saw him spending his one day off visiting the lonely in a nursing home. Each hidden act of sacrificial love, invisible to the world, was a deposit in his heavenly account. In God's economy, I saw with perfect clarity, you do not keep what you save. You keep only what you give away. This was the path. This was the answer for everyone, rich or poor. The beautiful vision began to fade, and Jesus turned to me for the final time. His eyes held the full weight of eternity, and he gave me the final answer, the one truth that distills this entire mystery into a single, terrifying, and liberating point. When a soul stands before my Father, he said, his voice resonating with the finality of absolute truth, he does not ask, "How much did you accumulate?" nor does he ask, "How much did you suffer?" He looks at the soul, whether it belonged to a king or a pauper, and he asks only one question regarding the resources it was given. What did you do with the portion I gave you to show your love for me and for your neighbor? That was it. That was the only question that would matter. The portion could be billions of dollars or 2 small coins. It could be a wealth of time and health or only a single, tamed breath. The amount was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was the answer. And just like that, I was back. Kneeling on the cold floor of my hotel room as the first light of dawn was breaking through the window. The vision was over, but its truth was burned into the very fabric of my soul. I stood up, no longer the same man who had knelt down hours earlier. I walked to the window and looked out at the waking city, seeing not a world of rich and poor, but a world of souls, each one holding their own portion, each one undergoing their own sacred test. In that moment, I made a vow. I vowed to God that I would no longer see my success as a reward or a comfort. I would see it as He does, as a magnifying glass. A constant, daily test of my heart, a sacred responsibility that I must either steward for His glory or be caged by for my own damnation. Now, I am sharing this with you because this message is not just for me. It is for every one of us. I urge you, look into your own heart right now. Are you the rich man, building a golden cage of comfort and omission? Are you the poor man, poisoning your soul with the idol of envy? Or are you a citizen of God's economy, making daily deposits of love, no matter how small they seem? This is the urgent choice before us all. Father God, I pray for every person hearing my voice. For the wealthy, I pray you shatter their illusion of security and replace it with a radical spirit of generosity. For the poor, I pray you heal the wounds of bitterness and envy and replace them with a spirit of contentment and trust in you. Lord, set us all free from the slavery of materialism, whether we are trapped by having or by wanting. Help us to understand that we are only stewards of the portion you have given us, and that our only purpose is to use it to love you and to love others. Let us live every day answering the only question that will matter in eternity. In Jesus' name, Amen.